All right, so what does this mean for medical schemes involved at Discovery GEMS, that's the government medical scheme, and med scheme? I'm joined now by Dr Stanley Moloabi, Principal Officer at GEMS, that's the Government Employment Medical Scheme. Good evening, thank you very much for your time. Now, I know that GEMS didn't want this interim report made public. You wanted to read it first and give your input at that point. Of course, you lost. The report was made public. I wonder how you account for the following, and I'm reading from the interim report, that between 2012 and 2019, black practitioners were more likely to be found to have committed fraud, waste and abuse than their white counterparts. That's by the three medical schemes. How do you account for that?
Good evening, Sally, and good evening to the ENCA viewers. Sally, I'm sure you will agree with me that it is an important report. However, I really would want to say that we received the report, obviously, once it was now made public. The whole day we were quickly going through the report and to try and interpret what the interim findings are. And we are still in that process of analyzing. It is a technical, and you will also agree with me that it has got some legalities. So at the moment, I hear you are asking me a specific question of accounting for the alter against the findings, and our position is that yes, we are concerned about what is out there, and we would love to be given then the opportunities to study the findings of the report and formulate firstly, as a matter of process, because as Advocate Toby indicated, we'll be given 4 weeks and a total of 6 weeks when the report will be finalized. So the opportunity that we are now exercising is that time that we are being afforded to study the report and make comments as the rest of the public has been made to have been afforded.
Med scheme has already come out and vehemently denied that they're involved in any racial profiling whatsoever in response to this interim report. Are you not prepared to make the same comment or similar comment?
Let us first study the report, and I think it's only fair that we do that. And then at any opportunity when we are comfortable that we understand what the findings are, then we will be available to,
sure. It's interesting, though. I hear you, but it's a bit of a shift, because when this probe was launched, the three medical schemes were very confident that there'd be no adverse findings. And the reason you gave is when a doctor's account is flagged for potential fraud, waste or abuse, it's all done by an algorithm. And that algorithm does not know if that doctor is black, white, Indian or coloured. So it seems to me you're not as confident as you were in the beginning. Is that true?
No, I wouldn't say I'm not confident. Salil, if you look at the summary of the report, it is stated that 2 things trigger, and that's what you also submitted to the when we were making public submissions. There are 2 events that can trigger and investigations against a specific healthcare provider. The first one is the receiving a whistleblower report, and it would be something like, well, I see on my SMS that it is said I went to Dr. Stanley Moloabi. I've never seen, I don't know that doctor, and I've never been there. So a whistleblower report like that would then trigger an investigation to try and establish what happened. The second one is the algorithm methods that you are talking to. Those algorithm methods do not identify the creed of or the race or the ethnicity of a doctor. The information is fed into the systems using PC and S numbers, which don't identify. So while I have said that we are still studying the report, I just needed to clarify that nothing in the trigger events classifies or identifies the race of the doctor.
It's interesting, the interim report says the probability that this distribution occurred by chance, i.e. that there's no correlation between racial status and fraud, waste and abuse outcomes, is for all practical purposes 0. And it goes on to say if you look at the numbers, black general practitioners 1.5 times more likely to be identified as FWA cases. Physiotherapists, black physiotherapists, almost double of their non-black counterparts. Black psychologists 3 times more likely, and they say that is not by chance. Are you prepared to acknowledge that maybe there's something wrong in the systems, or is there some other explanation that we're missing here?
So, in the meetings that I've already attended of the various experts that make input into how we analyze the report, you know, there was already indications that the interpretation could be problematic, and I'm not going to be specific here. That's what we are still looking at. So the fact that you are saying, and I've heard the statement you're saying, a black doctor is more likely, and I think the figure is 1.5% more likely to be found to have involved in fraud and waste. All of those we are looking at and say, what is it that could have come out with these results? And remember, Advocate Mugatobi did mention that it appears, and I mean this is subject to interpretation of what it means, it appears that there is no intention in the processes to racially classify. However, the outcome reflects that there could be that racial classifications. We're trying to interpret all of these things before we can make a firm response to our position on that. And we will certainly, when we have done all the work of looking at the report, we are concerned about the outcomes that have been published, but we will duly make public what now our position is. And may I just point out that we have all along said, should the reports, final ones for that matter, find that there has been some flaws in what we are doing, we will duly start a process to ensure that we look into those findings and make good wherever there have been flaws. And I commit that that is what a process we have already started planning on how we are going to do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for chatting to us this evening. That was Dr. Stanley Moloabi, Principal Officer at GEMS, that's the Government Employment Medical Scheme. Unlike MedScheme, which has vehemently denied any racial profiling at all after the release of that damning interim report, GEMS is saying, look, we need time to study exactly what this report says, and we are going to then give input to the final report.